All right, so welcome everybody. So today I have another special guest, and I'm saying that every time that I have a special guest, but it's true. I only bring people that are really on the fringe of healthcare and holistic approaches on healthcare. When I say fringe, I mean a little bit outsiders. So today, for my Greek fans and some of you people outside of Greece, I have Lauren. So Lauren, welcome.
Thank you so much. Appreciate
I
it.
appreciate you for coming by. And we just talked about our weathers, so that was nice. That was nice, a nice intro about our relationship, our virtual relationship as people. So why don't you give a short intro about yourself, a short bio, and we can start from that then.
Okay. So I'm Lauren. Hi, everybody. I am the founder and the CEO of a company called Fermenting Fairy. And it is my life's path and my life's dharma. It's like my divine path to offer people some of the most healthiest and healing foods on the planet. So I was introduced to fermented foods because I was very sick. I'm sure we'll get into that later, but that's how I started my company. And now I get to help others heal. And let's see, I live in Florida. I just moved here 4 months ago. No, it's like 5 months now from California. And I survived the calming California atmosphere. Uh, and now I'm in kind of mostly free Florida. And I'm very happy here with my husband and my puppy and my two cats. Yeah, so.
All right. All right.
It's hard to do my own intro.
Yeah, I guess so.
Challenging.
I guess
Yeah.
so, if you're humble enough. So you moved from a place with great weather to another place with great weather. At least we Greeks know about California and Florida as always being sunny.
Yeah.
Of course, you told me that it isn't always the case. That's great to know. So before we go into what are fermented foods and why are they so important, start with you. Yeah, let's talk about what happened with you in the past.
My story, like all of us, really starts at birth, but that's the long version. And I'll just kind of snip that and say that I was pretty sick as a child, like coming right out of my mom's stomach. I did not come out of the vagina. I was a C-section baby. And that started my journey as someone who was very colicky. I was cranky. I was uncomfortable. I had a lot of discomfort, as a baby. And looking back, I know that was from not having, a normal vaginal birth where I was bathed in my mother's, wonderful microbiome, her vaginal microbiome. Instead, I was like, introduced to her skin microbiome and the doctor's hands and the sterility of the hospital. So that definitely played a big role in my health. And so I was sick as a child. I had recurring UTIs, constantly on antibiotics, very depressed in my 20s, was on antidepressants. All of this leads back to gut health, not knowing this, but I took tons of medications as I was aging. And finally, in my mid 30s, I showed like severe signs of ill gut health. And I was diagnosed with Crohn's disease. And I was very sick. I was not digesting anything that I was eating. It was all coming right out of me. I had very, very loose diarrhea. And I was going to the bathroom up to 20 times a day. And I became like a prisoner of the illness because like I couldn't do anything. I was literally like, by the time the straw broke, like by the time I was like, enough of this, I was going to the bathroom in my pants. I was like incontinent as a, mid 30 woman who is about to get married and, planning my wedding. And at the same time, I couldn't leave my house because I was just shitting in my pants, basically. And I had to carry around toilet paper and all that stuff. It was horrible. It was incredibly embarrassing too. But I like to talk about it. I like to normalize it. I mean, it's not normal, but I like to talking about it, normalize the talking, because a lot of people go through this, and it's very it feels very alone, when you're going through it. And I just want people to know that I've been through it. Other people, hundreds, if not thousands of people do, this happens to them, and there's a path out of it, and you can heal from it.
And I'm going to add to that before we go on that there's a lot of shame with a lot of this stuff. And when you brought that to light, I was thinking of many things that I myself went through over the past 5 years. And I'm going through right now, to be honest. I'm in a very weird situation with my healthcare right now. But, and it's kind of funny because I'm a guy known to my circles talking about healthcare, and sometimes it's even worse if you talk about it and you are the guy, you are the dude or the gal.
Sure.
Yeah, and then you have your own issues, and everybody's you don't want to share it. You want to share it, but you also don't want to share it because you feel shame that you failed. So you failed your community, and you are a charlatan basically. And and I know kind of the feeling that you had. Of course, yours were a bit harder. So yeah, I think that's brave that you did, and I hope more people go and bring people to light to really not feeling alone. That's part of the healing process, isn't it? Right?
Oh yes, yeah, for sure. Thank you for sharing that, because when you are a person who others look up to, and no one's perfect, right? I'm not like I'm very healthy right now, thankfully, but I'm not perfect. Like I don't really sleep all that much. Like I have trouble sleeping some nights, and I have issues. I have health issues. Tell me one person that doesn't, and I will be shocked, because this world is incredibly difficult to navigate right now. And I don't mean like the whole COVID situation, which that adds to it, but there's just so much stuff, that we shouldn't be encountering, shouldn't be consuming. There literally is poison everywhere we look, whether it's our own thoughts or what we're breathing in, or it's just everywhere. And so our bodies have to work so much harder to optimize health, and it's very, very, very difficult. And so when you're a person who others look up to, sometimes I feel like I need to be healthy all the time, and I need to, show that I'm healthy all the time. But it's okay, because it actually feels better. Like when I'll go on my social media and I'll say, hey, I just had a week long of respiratory virus. Like I do get sick. I absolutely do get sick. I'm not going to be the person who says I never get sick. I don't believe those people. It's just, let's not be so, I don't know what the word is, but
Too good to be true, really.
too good to be true. Yeah, exactly. So I appreciate you saying this. And that's in fact what, I was in healthcare when I was getting sick. Like I was working with patients who were incredibly sick as an occupational therapist. I was working in a hospital. And I looked healthy, although when I started losing weight, I really, like, I would show up and my coworkers would be like I could just see the shock on their face. So I know, like, I looked healthy, and then there was a period where I just lost so much weight and I was so malnourished that there's no one in their right mind would look at me and say that's a healthy person. So, I got the Crohn's diagnosis through the colonoscopy, and was put on heavy medications, anti-inflammatories, an immune suppressor. And I took it for about 3 or 4 months, got, slightly better, but then I would have these moments of having like severe symptoms from the medication. And when I realized that, I'm suppressing my immune system when that's the exact thing that I need, because I figured out that Crohn's is not the immune system that's gone awry, but it's more inflammation in my gut, first and foremost. But of course, nobody, like no doctor ever told me that. They just say it's an autoimmune disease. And it's my immune system that's gone awry. And it's my immune system that's the problem. And so let's take a medication that suppresses it so that you don't have any symptoms anymore. But in actuality, my immune system is doing its job because it's sensing something foreign. There's a leaky gut, there's inflammation. It's still to this day so utterly shocking that doctors haven't made the connection. And I think they have made the connection. They just get paid really well to recommend prescribe these medications. But how could you put someone who needs their immune system on an immune suppressor and then go ahead and tell me that when I get off of these medications that I'm going to get cancer because I got off these medications? Like, it's so ass backwards that it doesn't make any sense. And it literally, you can't imagine. And people always say, like, doctors, they're innocent, they're not doing it on purpose. Well, sorry, like, I'll disagree that 90% probably of the physicians out there that are prescribing these medications and not making the connection between what is a true autoimmune disease, they're doing it intentionally. I mean, they're getting paid really well to prescribe these medications. So.
About doctors and medications and the deals behind the closed doors, I never got the connection until I went to a doctor. A couple of years ago, there was a doctor about my stomach. So I had have lots of issues about my stomach issue and duodenum issues and gut inflammation, and I still have, honestly. But when I was waiting in the waiting room, there was a woman sitting beside me, and I'm talkative guy, so I like to talk with people. I'm bored sometimes, especially in the waiting room. I mean, hey, it's stressful enough to wait to get a diagnosis by the doctor, which you don't get usually, but that's another question.
You get a label.
Yes, yeah, exactly. Yeah, I get a label. And I asked the woman what's her occupation and stuff. And she told me that she was there to basically sell a deal to the doctor about pharmaceutical industry that she was representing. And until that point, I never got the connection. I couldn't understand how that worked until that point, because it was so real. Sometimes I think, Lauren, at least for me, I don't know for other people, but I think for other people too, you have to see something happening to say, all right.
Yeah, because
Yes.
you want to believe in the goodness of people. Like, you want to believe that everyone's really honest and really truthful. And, it's just not the case anymore. Money rules, money talks, money sways people that you think would never do something evil, and they'll do it. And, if there's anything that we've learned in the last 2 years, is that the whole system of everything, like every system that's put into place in this world right now, is designed to kill us. I mean, it's true. Like, you can, the education system, the financial system, the medical system, everything is designed to set us up so that we don't thrive. We're not like thriving like individuals. So, and this woman, I mean, she has a job where she sells and she bribes doctors, through vacations. Yeah, I mean, my whole family are doctors, and trust me, like, they are wined and dined, and vacations, lavish dinners, thousands and thousands of dollars. Like we're talking like you seal a deal, we're talking like maybe like 50 grand, just like on sign the dotted line and boom, you've got like that much money. It's crazy to think that, but we know it's true. And that's why, you know, we have to take health into our own hands because it's hard to trust anyone these days.
Exactly. Exactly. And since you said taking our health to our own hands, and I'm guessing our hands are usually dirty with bacteria, so why not talk about, you know, I'm guessing that we can also finish the story about your healthcare and then talk about the dirty foods that you're making. How do you want to proceed? Whatever you want.
So I guess just like the last part of my story is I made the connection of what Crohn's really is, and that it's not my immune system going bad or attacking itself. It's more my gut has inflammation. And then why does my gut have inflammation? Because I have leaky gut and I have dysbiosis in my gut. Dysbiosis is when you have a healthy gut will have more healthy bacteria than the opportunistic pathogenic bacteria. But dysbiosis is when that ratio is flipped, where you have more opportunistic or pathogenic than the healthy bacteria. So I had dysbiosis, I had leaky gut, I had inflammation. So what I did was I went on an anti-inflammatory diet and I started eating fermented foods. And it really just like so quickly started healing my body. And then I started doing it at home. I would watch YouTube videos and read books and just kind of understand what was happening with fermented foods and gut health. And fell in love with the process, fell in love with the techniques. And I created my own recipes. Like I started with a kombucha, but kombucha was not sitting well with me. So I said, well, what else can I make that's like a fun drink that's bubbly and whatnot? So I created my lemonade recipe. And that was really good for me because I had a fermented ginger root. And so I just created all these fun recipes that I myself took in for several years before I really even introduced them to the public. And that's how I started Fermenting Fairy. Yeah.
Wow. So you basically went to the internet, I'm guessing, and you started researching.
Yeah.
And you put your research to action, which is another, you know, component of healing. Sometimes I'm seeing also with myself, I'm getting my research information, I'm putting it to lists, and I'm getting some steps down, and I'm writing them, and I'm printing the steps,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm having them here in front of me. And sometimes I never get to the actions. Before we go to your foods and kombucha and all that good stuff, just let me know, what was it that moved you to action? Was it pain? What was it?
Moved me to action to make my own ferments or to start my company? Which one?
To make your own ferments first.
Oh, well, I found a little excerpt in a book that I was reading that said fermented foods could be good for your gut. And then when I started consuming them, they were really healing for my body. And then I don't know what sparked. I really don't even remember what it was that made me think, let me do it on my own, because I could have continued to buy them in the health food store. But I don't remember. I think it was just like, again, it was like this divine movement. Like it was something that just moved in me that said, you need to start doing this on your own. And I did. I had no intentions. I mean, really like no intentions of starting a company. I didn't know anything about being an entrepreneur. I didn't know anything about having a food company. I was so far away from the food world. I wasn't a foodie. Like I didn't know really anything about food. I just like, I would eat food for energy. That was it. Definitely not a lover of food. I mean, like give me white rice with like butter and salt, and I could eat that for the rest of my life. You know, I don't need fancy food. So I wasn't looking to start a company. I was an occupational therapist. I was fine with that. But again, like I feel like it was like this divine like wind behind me. It was God like moving me in this direction. And I continued. There was a good friend of mine who was a yoga teacher in Santa Monica, and he had ulcerative colitis, which is similar to Crohn's. It's an IBD. And I started to give him some of my products. Back then, it was just my food. They weren't even products. And he started feeling good and better. And he sort of announced, like one day I was taking his yoga class, and he said, he came up to me, but there was like 50 people with their yoga mats down before the class started. And he came up to me really loudly. And I think he did this on purpose. He said, "You have got to start selling this stuff. Like, it's the most amazing stuff I've ever had." And everyone turned around, and, and then after the class, people came up to me and said, like, "What do you sell?" Like, and I'm like, "I'm not selling anything." But then I started selling. I would put a table up outside of his yoga studio, and a couple of weeks I sold some stuff. And then I started at a farmer's market in Southern California. And that was it. That was like that's when I knew I had something that was real gold. Because people were coming back. I was selling out. I had people coming to the farmer's market just for my products. So yeah, that's when I realized, okay, this is gonna go somewhere.
Yeah, seems that way. And when you created these first products, this is my inner entrepreneur talking now. But I have a curiosity. How do you did you created any jars of yourself? Did you make them with jars that you found from other things that you bought? How were these first products? And did you worry about safety? Did the first customers worried about safety?
Yeah.
If you don't want to answer, you can always avoid it. All right. So
Oh, no.
problem.
I'm an open book. But it's funny because I just trusted the process so much that I didn't worry about people getting sick. I didn't sterilize the jars. I still don't sterilize the jars. I really, really trusted. Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to put chemicals and crap inside. It's bacteria. They will take, if you ferment something really well, it's going to be a very safe vessel so that no pathogens can survive. That's why everyone says, "Oh, can you get sick from fermented foods? Can you get food poisoning from it?" And no, it's healthier than any food. It's healthier than a salad. It's healthier than your cooked broccoli. It's way healthier than that because it's got all the healthy bacteria in it. So yeah, I didn't really worry about safety so much. I just worried about doing the technique, doing the fermentation process right. And once you have that, then you don't really, in my perspective, you don't have to worry about safety so much. Just get the fermentation process right, and the microbes will do it for you. Yeah.
Exactly. All right. So that's awesome. We can go two ways right now. So we can talk about the issues that you probably face with your company going on. Mm-hmm. But there is also another way that we can go, another path. We can also talk about products, about the products that you have. And I think I'm more inclined about the latter, to talk about the latter one. But
okay.
Yeah, about the products and about the fermentation process. So talk a little bit about the company. What do you offer? A few words about that. All right.
Okay. So we're unique. My company, Fermenting Fairy, is unique in more than two ways, but I would say two ways that really stand out to me. And one is that we do a wild fermentation process, and that is taking organically grown produce. So whatever vegetable or fruit you want to ferment, make sure it's grown in organic, regenerative, hopefully, soil, so that it already has the bacteria and the fungi and the yeast already in its cell walls and on its skin, because it's grown in the soil, and the soil has trillions and trillions of the microorganisms. So that when you take that head of cabbage, per se, and you want to make sauerkraut, a wild fermentation is taking that head of cabbage that's organically grown, creating a vessel that has no oxygen. So it's an anaerobic process, and letting the naturally occurring bacteria, yeast, fungi flourish, rather than, let's just say, a controlled fermentation versus wild fermentation. Controlled fermentation is someone who makes a sauerkraut, but they add in microbes. They add in a starter. They add in lactobacillus, or they add in bifidum. So they're taking a freeze-dried powder that's supposedly a microorganism and throwing it in and letting that kickstart the fermentation process, which to me is not as healthy. And it's just, they're not real, they're laboratory derived microorganisms rather than getting it straight from the soil. So that's what we do at Fermenting Fairy. All of my products are wild fermented. And then the other thing that makes us stand apart from other fermentation companies is that I've taken things that people are familiar with, like lemonade. Everyone knows lemonade. Most people love it. And applesauce. Who doesn't love applesauce, right? Sauerkraut, not so much. Kefir, not so much. But and then bread. Now I have a sourdough. But those things people can really relate to. And so people who are really turned off or really afraid to do fermented foods, they can start with an applesauce, or they can start with a lemonade and try it and say, that's not that bad. So maybe I'll take another step and go to the sauerkraut, or take another step and go to the kefir. So I would say my products are good for anyone and everyone, because they're palatable, they're delicious, and they're also healthy. Yeah.
You're talking to a fan, so and I really liked the part that you said about control, about you doing it more raw, more real, and not cleaning not sterilizing the jars and stuff.
Yeah.
And I always, when I started doing fermenting foods a few months back, so I'm new to that. I'm young to that process. And it always, when I read, sterilize this, sterilize that, it sounds a bit weird. Why sterilize something when you want to eat something that's not sterilized and full of bacteria? So it doesn't make any sense to me. Yeah. And always, another thing is that I always try to think rationally about how people in ancient times would do things. So
exactly, they're not sterilizing
yes,
things.
I mean, how could you sterilize something back in the 1800s, or even far back in the ancient Greece? I don't know. How could you really sterilize your jars? It sounds ridiculous,
Right, exactly. Yeah, and we have to remember that fermentation is an ancient practice of preserving food. And a lot of people will say, like, oh, well, our ancestors just used it for preservation. They didn't use it for health purposes. But actually, I disagree with that. I think that they did. And I think that they knew somehow that vegetables and fruit have defense mechanisms that can, if eaten raw or even cooked, can be toxic to the human body. So what did our ancestors do? They fermented vegetables. They soaked, they sprouted grains. They didn't really eat anything that was raw except for raw meat. But they weren't eating veggies and fruit raw. So it's really an ancient practice of health and preservation. And that's what we've lost. Like, we've lost those like medicinal ways of eating. Because again, like, we have to sterilize everything. We have to pasteurize everything. We have to boil everything. and it just kills the nutrients. It kills what the heart or the prana, like the life force of the food.
Yeah, that's I think that's a true statement. What you said about killing the prana. The funny enough, I was studying a book right now. I'm studying a book about the warrior diet. So it's a guy. I don't know if you know that book.
The warrior diet?
Yes.
No.
Oh, it's a guy. I think in 2007. I think he wrote it, and Ori Hofmeckler. Sounds Austrian. So, but he talked about that, about the living food and about the importance of enzymes and probiotic organisms. And yeah, he talks about all that stuff, living food. And I think, Lauren, I want to ask you, this is a last question before we go to the ending slowly. Why do you think people are so obsessed with cleanliness and sterilization? When did that happen? If you know something about this or your opinion, let us know.
I think it happened, I think it's part of the mission, part of the agenda. Sorry, my cat's gonna get involved.
No worries. No worries.
The beginning of our conversation was, all the systems right now are set up to fail us, to poison us, to kill us. And it's just definitely part of the agenda is germ theory. Like I was raised as a germ theory baby, basically, because I had several people in my family were doctors, and I was always like washing my hands. Everything was always clean. Everything's in the refrigerator. Antibiotics, like everything's like kill microorganisms. They're bad. And our Western way of thinking about the body is that the microorganisms are bad. We have to kill them all, and that's where it really goes wrong. And that's like, that for me was this whole like spiritual shift. Like when I started fermenting at home, and I was seeing that these microorganisms that I've been trying to kill my whole life and that I've always heard were bad are now healing my body. And it was just like this, I couldn't help but like pray to the microscopic world, because it's just like, I've always learned that they were bad, and they're not. Like we are them. It's not even that we need them. We are them. If we could just understand that we are them, it's not even that we need them. Like, and when we eat, we're feeding them. We're not feeding us. We're not feeding our human cells. We're feeding our microorganisms. So everything that we put in our mouth is actually first and foremost for the microorganisms that we are, 90% of. So I don't know. I mean, the whole cleanliness thing is, when I first started Fermenting Fairy, it was insane. People are like, what do I do? It's bacteria. A lot of fear. And this was like 4 years ago. So 4 years ago, it was a completely different world where people were really, really scared. And now, I have more people opened to the idea because probiotics and gut health is so big right now. But then at the same time, we have people masked and jabbed, and viruses are bad. And, so we're going backwards. I feel like we made some progress, but now we're going backwards into germ theory again, which is unfortunate. And everywhere I go, it's spraying. Like even when you sit at a restaurant now, even in Florida, you can see that a person gets up from the table and they're done, they leave, and they come around and they spray these chemicals. Whereas, back in the day, they would just take a wet cloth and wipe it. Water, whatever happened to water. And now they're like spraying this chemical. I'm sitting on the table next to them eating food and I'm breathing that in. It's like, we got it so wrong again.
I'm going to add to all that my grandmother, she's 90, and she's up in the mountains. So I don't think that's never cared about cleanliness and about gels and about all that stuff. So yeah,
Right.
it goes to show you really, our modern science goes to show you how funny and how hypocritical it is, because they praise the 1950s, 1960s Greeks and the blue zones and the
Oh
Italians,
yeah.
and at the same time they demand, or they try to demand of people to do these weird rituals, honestly, while at the same time, so they show you what is the right way. And it's not about cleanliness. I mean, these people back then, they didn't care about it. They did things like
Mhm.
you said. They processed food right. They had the probiotic foods. They had their vinegars, their wines. They were live. They were
Raspberry, yeah, the
yes,
raw.
yes, exactly. Yeah, all that traditional stuff. And I'm going, by the way, to create a few videos about traditional diets in my channel, about Greeks, especially since I'm here and I'm Greek.
Cool. Uh-huh.
And I think that's going to be informative, because it seems to me, Lauren, that we cut our roots. So they try to cut the roots. Whoop. So you forget your history because you never
Mhm.
learn it. It was never passed to you by the elders. And
Mhm.
that's another great thing they tell us, go away from your grandfather, grandmother's parents. Go away. It's great to be free, to be on your own little
Mhm.
apartment in the middle of nowhere. And if you see Lauren ancient, especially here in Greece and Italy, I don't know about Europe, but the tradition here was always that the family always, or at least most times, they stayed together. So usually
Mm.
the house was, the grandfathers, grandmothers, the parents, sometimes even uncles and aunts, and kids. So a lot of people in not small houses, but at the very least nearby houses. So the wisdom, if you can say so, it was passed to the children from observation alone, but also from stories. And that wisdom, that thing that you created, by the way, and I'm thankful that you did. And I hope that more people do that here and there and everywhere. You basically try to recreate the wheel to find again something that people just, had it. And that's weird. That's weird.
Yeah, yeah, that's beautiful. And
No.
I mean, here in the US, we're not really encouraged. Like I used to live across the country from my family. Now I'm in Florida, they're in New York. But, elders are not thought of as, they're like thought of as like children in a way, like you have to take care of them. And there's no like real
Respect.
respect and devotion for what they've been through and their lineage, and their traditions, which are so much more connected to nature than ours, so yeah, so we have to read books, we have to go back that way.
Yeah, it seems to be the case. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, since we are closing, why not tell us your website? And if you ship to Europe, that would be also fun to know.
Okay. So website is fermentingfairy.com, and Instagram is fermenting.fairy. We ship to Europe, yes. However, shipping can be quite expensive right now. But the best thing to do is to send me an email, and you can just send it Lauren, Lauren, at fermentingfairy.com, and send me your address and send me how many products you want to order, because it's based on weight, and I'll get you a shipping quote, because my website won't take any orders that are international.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
great. All right, all right. Everybody listening, go to Lauren's website. So, any last words before we part ways?
I just want to thank you a lot, because I know you found me from Crow. I think that when you connected with me, I would love for my company or my message to get out further than the US, and it has. I have a lot of international customers, but it always surprises me that quality products like mine aren't found in Europe. I thought that Europe would be the place that they would be found, but I hear from all my customers that are abroad that nothing like that really exists. So this really, like, the low quality of food right now is really worldwide. So I thank you for bringing me and my message to more of, like, your audience. And I'm just grateful. I just want to encourage everyone to hang in there, because it's not easy being healthy these days, but it's possible. It just takes daily devotion. So that's it.
That's a great message. Yeah. All right, Lauren. From my part, I really thank you for coming here and spreading the word, because sometimes it feels lonely when you are a crazy guy on yourself here, trying to do things and learning the fermentation process. And there were a myriad of things that you could do right now, this hour, and you chose to spread the word, and that shows, from my part, that you are devoted to help people.
100%. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you too. So, all right. So everybody go to Lauren's website, Fermenting Fairy, right?
Got it. Yep.
Great name, by the way. And see you soon, guys and girls. See you soon in the next episode. Yeah, ciao.
Yep.
Great. So bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.